O'clock. Time to call the Heritage Preservation Commission meeting to order. Roll call. Start on my right.
Richard Curry here.
Margaret Fatt.
Leon Axman.
Pete Boulay.
Frank Gilbertson. Bob Cardinal.
All right, we do have a quorum. We're only missing one person, maybe John still might show up. He can come in the middle of the meeting if he likes. Let's take a look at the agenda. I have one change. I'd like to table H1 for a future date. Part of it is I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to talk about. I couldn't decide. Wakefield, Poor Farm. Now we got enough on the agenda. But if there's a topic anybody really want me to talk about, they can always make a request. We can take requests. So if there's something you always want to know about, I can see if I know anything about it. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. So one of the future topics will have to be the secret tunnels of the Poor Farm.
Yeah.
That will be a good one. I'll have to work on that. That might be fun. So anyway, you'll have to wait for H1. We'll table that. Any other changes to the agenda?
I'll move approval.
All right. Richard made a motion. Margaret seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. D1, approval of minutes. Everybody got a copy of the minutes in their packet. Take a quick look, see if there's anything that needs changing. I didn't see anything, but there isn't.
I move approval of the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Leon made a motion to approve, a second by Richard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. E1, let's get to the meat of it here. Update on Gladstone neighborhood redevelopment efforts. Ginny. Looks like we got
Thank
some
you.
slides.
Yes. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Tonight we're going to take a look at the Gladstone area redevelopment, and this is just an update only. There's no action required. Mike Martin, who's our acting director of community development, prepared a couple memos for us. He was not able to come tonight, but I really wanted the commission to see some of this material so you know what's been going on in the city. But tonight will be an opportunity to provide any historical information you have on the purchased properties or on the areas that are identified for redevelopment. Excuse the typo. So our Maplewood's comprehensive plan calls for redevelopment in the Gladstone neighborhood. And they found that the site preparation costs are really prohibited for developers. They really need to be assembling several lots and parcels to be able to do much. So our capital improvement plan, approved by council, does allocate funding for the city to work to acquire properties for redevelopment. And the city council has approved the purchase of 4 properties. Most of these would need adjacent properties to actually be developed. So here's kind of the long-term vision. You see Frost and English in the roundabout and the Savannah there. To the west of the Savannah is one of the areas that's calling for medium-density residential housing. Across from the Savannah, they're trying to acquire properties to eventually put into mixed-use development. The Moose Lodge, which is on the northeast corner of that Frost and English, that would also be mixed use or some other type of development potentially related to the Vento Trail. And then on the far east, that's the Gladstone House, and we'll talk about each of these properties. So here are the properties that the city that have been approved for purchase, and most of them have been acquired, but all of them have been approved by council for purchase. So let's begin with A. This is a little tiny lot to the west of the Villages, the new development at Frost and English. It's just a 0.17 acre lot. It's zoned for mixed-use development, and the intent of the city is to hold this land and work towards acquisition of other properties so a larger parcel could be developed.
Danny, do you have your mic on?
Yes. Is this better?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'll talk right into it. Property B is to the west of the Gladstone Savannah. The council has approved the purchase of that as well. It's zoned for medium-density residential housing. The intent is to hold it and try to acquire nearby adjacent land and then develop that as a unit. Property C is the Gladstone House. That's the old town hall. That's been purchased. It's the Farmer Town Hall. It's in very poor condition. So the city owns the parking lot across the street from that that's adjacent to the Philippine Center. And the Philippine Center owns the parking lot just to the west of C, of the Gladstone House. So they'll be talking about whether they're going to do some kind of transfer of those two properties. So the city would own the parking lot adjacent to C, and the Philippine Center would own the current city property, which is the yellow mark on your map with no letter on it. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the last parcel is the Moose Lodge on English Street. The council has approved the purchase agreement for that, and that may be a key site for the Rush Line project. I'm not sure at this stage what would actually go in there. So that was basically the information, a summary of the information that was presented to you in your memo. So I think it's open for commissioners, if there's anything about those 4 properties that you'd like the city to know, now's the time. Or, if we can go back and look, those are kind of the key areas they're looking at for redevelopment, those 4 areas. Is there anything in those that you know of that has historic value that the city really needs to be aware of?
We've got a hand up already.
Yeah, but you're running the meeting.
Oh, well, yep. Well, would you like to comment?
I have 3 questions. The most insignificant one for our purposes is, I was just interested in why the site prep costs were so high in that area.
Oh, talking to Mike.
I was just interested in why the site prep costs were so high in that area.
So a lot of the buildings would have to be torn down, and it's not a lot. The developers, if the city wasn't involved, would have to assemble several parcels. Okay, so that's all going to take time and a lot of rigmarole. So.
And when it came to the Gladstone House, I understand that that's in very poor condition, quote unquote. Is anything historically salvageable out of that house?
Not that we know of, and the concern, of course, is there asbestos or anything else in there, since that structure has been added on to? So we don't know the toxicity of that. We've had requests that when they're taking it down, can we keep an eye out just to see if there's anything between the walls? And so we can certainly put that request in, but it's really going to depend on if they think there's any toxicity in there and have to do a certain type of demolition. But certainly we can ask them to keep an eye out.
So we can monitor that for history reasons?
We can ask,
Okay.
I can ask that when they do the removal, when they demolish the building, to keep an eye out for anything within the walls that might be historic.
And the last question, and I know this conversation has come up before, along Frost Street in front of the Moose Lodge, there were a number of privies, I believe, that were located in that area. When they do excavation in that area, or could excavation or an investigation be done before all the redevelopment is done on the curb in front of kind of the curb area?
So my understanding is the historians have been doing work out there, and there was some archaeological work done on the privy. We do not yet have their report, so when we have a report from that,
So that's being done.
that's being done as part of the bus rapid transit project. And so when we get a report on that, that'll be really interesting for the commission to take a look at.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, Pete, as long as it's going that way. When we started this,
Mike,
it is on.
I know, but you got to get closer.
Oh, no, I'll scream.
There you go.
They'll be shutting it off. This area here in Gladstone, when we started this, before this book, our content thing came out, we planned to have Gladstone our historic district. Now, if they tear it all down, there's not going to be any historic value to doing it. So therefore, making a motion to hold on to these buildings and repair them and bring them up to standard.
All right, Richard made a motion. Is there a second to his motion?
Otherwise, why do we have a historical preservation? We're not going to have a historic district in Maplewood anymore.
If I may add, if you look at the context study, they did not recommend the Gladstone being a historic district. They felt it did not qualify to have a historic district. You would need things from the same period, and there was so little left from the original period of significance. The one area they thought might be a historic district might have been, I think, further to the east, some of the expensive some of the homes on the lake. So if you read that area regarding Gladstone, they did our history consultant did not feel that would make a historic district.
The thing
so you would have
with
to
consultants, it's whoever gets them is how they're going to present their findings. If they want, because this project in Gladstone was done way back, what was it, 2005, when they wanted to do everything from 61 all the way to White Bear Avenue. They're just bringing all this stuff up, rehashing it, only bringing it in smaller groups so that they don't get all the neighbors up in arms. And this was, I feel, was talked by the council that this is what they wanted, or staff, this is what the staff wanted to do. Let's not make it significant.
If I may just clarify, what our consultant had told us as a group when they were doing the context study was to have a historic district, for Gladstone to be a historic district, we would have to have several buildings from if it was the industrial history from the 1800s, or we would have to have another period of history where we had a lot of significant buildings from that era. And so because we didn't have that kind of pattern, they did not feel that it would make sense to have it as a historic district. It's different because we're looking at structures, historic structures that exist there. So,
All right.
Question. Other than the Gladstone house, which is, as I understand it, unsavable, are there any other historical buildings in that area that we will lose over this project?
So when I took a drive-by, architecturally, I did not see anything of significance. And so there are a few buildings that are over 50 years old, but they're not looking at things like the SunGuard House and some of the other buildings from the late 1800s. I didn't see anything. If you look at that north side of Frost, the north side of Frost, it's more recent development, a little bit more commercial. Not much on the west side of the Savannah. It's the Moose Lodge.
Thank you.
Yeah. Still waiting to see if there's a second. I'm going to let the motion die if there's no second. We can continue discussion just fine.
Well, the thing is, what I'm getting at is, we as a city now will not have any area that they're going to be able to call historic district. Anything that has any age to it.
Okay?
Am I right?
I don't know.
Well, you've been around long enough.
I don't
If
know.
you put a new building up, it's not going to be historic, right? Till another 50 years.
I'm not necessarily saying this is the only place in Maplewood that could be a historic district. I think you could argue there's a couple other places that would probably compete with it. I mean, obviously I have a soft spot for Gladstone, but not necessarily the only thing in
Midvale,
Maplewood.
too.
Midvale, the
That's,
Poor Farm Campus. I mean, there's other places in Maplewood
places,
that...
but this could be one of them. So we're spreading the area out.
The answer a little more on what might be historic, Leon asked what could be, and part of the problem with the Gladstone house is that it was moved there, Actually, it was moved twice. There is some errors in the description in the packet. It should reflect that it was a town hall, and that I don't remember a bakery ever being in there. It was a catering business, though.
I think that's what, yeah. I'll make sure he
mean,
understands it was catering.
So I mean, there's
not
more
bakery.
flushing out. If this is going to council, I would flush this out more.
No, this is, I mean, the city has purchased that site. This is not going to council. This is just for your information. This is, but I will make sure that our planning department knows that. It was a catering business, not a bakery, so they're accurate about that.
And before destruction, I'd wanted the history of that building's flushed out better. We can do that. We already have most of the information.
Yeah, I think you have most of the information.
yeah,
I mean, is there
we have,
anything else you need?
And definitely, since the city owns the building, I know what happens usually when they demolish buildings. It's like the cover of darkness on the February 29th at
We don't get notice.
odd times. So if we know in advance, we can be there when it happens, or at least Bob Jensen or somebody. If during the workday, we can't.
If
be
I
there.
if I am able to get notice, I can notify our chair.
Well, I think not if we should be notified. This is a pretty historical building to lose. I get that it can't be saved.
I will put that request into our
Yes,
city manager
definitely
and our planning.
we need somebody there.
director.
If it's owned by the city, it shouldn't be a secret when it comes down. I mean, I understand
yeah,
a commercial
nobody's-
use,
yeah.
No,
No one's trying to make it a secret.
but definitely I like to be there if I can. I mean, I can't promise I would be, but I don't know about other commissioners, but it's quite the end of an era when that thing comes down. I mean,
I'll see if I can get a special invitation to people,
The
for a
other
couple people
building
interested in
that's
history.
there that they don't put up too many of is the Moose Club with the block.
well, I'd like to know more about the Moose Lodge. Did we ever find out when it was built?
So, when I asked, Mr. Jensen and Mr. Boulay if they had any info on the Moose Lodge, and we really didn't. With those two folks, we did not. And so we don't know much about the Moose Lodge. They must have a history.
Maybe, but it's like
think
the
they
mall.
might?
It's changed hands a few
And
times.
so we can certainly, and I'm just not remembering off the top of my head, but when this all first came up, I did go and look and see what structures are over 50 years old, because you can just look at the Ramsey County GIS for that. And a few were, but they weren't like from the 1800s, or they weren't, they weren't 75 or 100 years old. They were.
Well,
just over that
if
age.
you look at Gladstone as a whole, the ones that are still probably the most historic would probably be Benson's Grocery across the street. That's Mike's LP Gas. That's pretty much unaltered exterior. It's really close to Frost. It's not part of this project. The Moose Lodge was added onto. You can tell if you look at it closely. You can see that it was originally a smaller structure. So that was added on. Now, back in the day, the city used to have lots of records by property. Do they still have, all these used to have wells. They hooked up to city water, and when they did, they needed a permit. Does that still exist in the city?
I don't know. I can ask. We've lost so much staff history over the years, and I don't know where those records would be, but I can ask.
Oh, do we have an approach here? Is Mr. Oh,
Oh, yes, Mr.
Mr.
Carlson knows where they
Carlson?
are. He'll be in touch with me after the meeting. Thank you.
they are? Okay. All right, well, there you go.
Does
That
the
might help.
Historical
Bob, did you have a comment about?
This Historic Society has that?
Mr. Chair, yeah, there's two items that I think we should include some comments about. The mobile home park is in very, very poor condition. I would say almost unlivable condition. And I think the city, I know the city does not like to approach a private property without some complaints or whatever, but I think that needs to be addressed. I think they're going to find a site there that should be addressed.
Okay.
And then there's one other site that should be addressed. Let me think here.
Is it on the list, or is this a separate
No, it is
site?
not. I don't know why that wasn't included.
Oh, so, if I may, these are just the projects, those 4 things are just the areas they're working on currently.
Yeah, I just
So it's
wanna
not
put-
necessarily a comprehensive plan of what
No.
the city has in mind long-term.
I realize that. But I think that it should be brought to the city's attention to address that mobile home park. There was one other site here that should be mentioned also. If you look at the area, and I don't think that the,
Bob, was the other site where they had the cars being stored that the city
no,
forced out?
that's included here.
That's included,
Yeah.
yes.
There is another site here. Anyway, we should address that, or the city should take a look at that. They don't have to include it in this proposal, but it's in very, very poor condition there. So, just mention that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So the regional Ramsey Rail owns the property just to the south of the. Is that correct? The
That's my
old
understanding,
Red
yeah.
Shed, the old Gladstone lumberyard property, right? So, is there any idea how that's going to play into the whole? Because I know there's been
No.
talk about a station.
Yeah.
If they own that property, is that what they're?
Not necessarily there. So I think we just have to wait to hear more about the bus rapid transit and where that actual station would be. The last I heard, it would be more like on Frost,
Okay.
where the trail crosses, but I don't know what that really means. So,
I'll tell you what.
Leon?
Oh, go ahead, Leon.
Mr. Chairman, when we talked about the station, it was located just north of Frost on the Vento Trail, just north of that intersection of Frost,
So that would have,
of the Vento Trail and Frost.
What side of the Vento Trail were they thinking?
I cannot answer that right
Okay.
now. Much of Frost Avenue was going to be used for off-street parking, as well as other parking lots in and behind, near the fire hall type thing. There was a whole development plan for how they were going to structure that. Along Vento Trail, they were planning series of townhouses and condos to complement the apartment buildings that were going up across the other side of English.
Okay.
So much of that area has been kind of mocked up as to their vision for the future. But when I saw the station, it was just north of Frost, and it was on the Vento Trail.
I remember this reminds me of the discussion to close the Gladstone Fire Station, and I kind of made a plea the city should consider keeping that open because of all the construction of all these homes going in, apartments. I lived in enough apartments to know they have fires. Every apartment I've ever been in has had a fire. So I would plea that if that's the location of the station, I would hate to see them tear down the fire hall to put the station there, since I could see many other places that could work on this map than something like that. Since it looks like they want to put in, this is just suggestions, right?
Well, so I'm really looking for history. So
Okay.
it's not our
Yeah.
responsibility
know
to
that.
develop the area. It's really,
Okay. I'm ready
we want
to
to make
talk
sure
history.
anything that's really important doesn't get destroyed.
Yes.
And so,
Well, I can start with what.
and you can limit it to the areas we've talked about on the maps, or you can talk in general, if you'd like, about the larger Gladstone area.
Well, starting with A, I don't want to monopolize the time, but starting with A, I'm not sure on if there was ever a structure on parcel A, the one north of Frost Avenue.
Yeah.
It's a small, I'm not sure.
Okay.
is it that where there's a maintenance and a barber shop there?
Close to it. I don't. It's might be to the east of it. if it's what I'm thinking of. I'm not sure. I haven't walked the site. Now I can't. It's kind of tough in the winter to walk. Yeah, maybe we should throw it on the screen. Ooh, wow. There we go. Gladstone. There's Gloucester. There's Gladstone. Look at that. Gotta love Google. There we go. Oh, look at that. Street view. Okay. Look at this. This is awesome.
This is.
So go a little farther east and you got it.
Oop.
Oop.
Sorry.
Oop.
Nice street.
Whoa.
So one question I have with a site like this is how much time do we have? I mean, obviously it's just being set aside for now for future development. It's too small to be of any interest, I'm sure. So I guess, for the starters on this one, looks like we're not quite there. Or are we almost there?
It's just, we have 0.17 acres and we need several.
Okay. So maybe when the weather looks like that again in Google, we'll have to take a walk on the site to get a better look, because I can't really remember. I mean, obviously it's overgrown. This is 2012, so maybe they've cut down the trees by now. I don't know if it's, like I said, I should have drove out there today to get a better look at this thing, but I didn't. So this one, we'll have to take a closer look. I don't know what was here in the 19th century, if there actually was anything ever there or not. I have no idea. We'll have to talk to Bob or the Maplewood Historical Society and see. Now, Parcel B was the site of the Maplewood Auto Clinic that was, if anybody remember, exploded. And once they demoed the site, it became that storage facility. One question I'd have is, did they ever cap the well on the property after the explosion?
Oh, on
I think they
on
did.
B,
Did they?
that used
Okay.
to be, if I remember right, there was a American Legion or a VFW post there before.
In that building?
Yep,
Okay. So
when I was
Um,
younger.
you're younger. Yeah. So I don't know. There's nothing probably other than that. I don't recall anything historic on B. It was, oh, there, that's a good picture of it. Oh, that was, I don't want me. There you go. So that, yep, and that's pretty much what it's been like for the past, 15 years.
Yeah,
So-
they had it was an upstairs meeting room
Okay.
for it was either American Legion or VFW post of Maplewood.
It was an odd building set inside that hill.
And then
Yep.
down below they had garages, but they used to have, after the VFW or American Legion moved out of there, it became a van customizing
Oh, okay.
place. Because I took my van and had windows put in there.
Okay, there was a glass business in there too, in the basement. So I'll be, and once again, we should check with the Maplewood Area Historical Society just to double check, but I don't recall anything there. D.
If
Oh.
you don't mind, just straight across from the Savannah then, on the way back to English.
Okay.
So here's the buildings that we have not purchased, but this is what the buildings look like.
Oh.
In the
Is-
north side of Frost.
Okay. The old Maplewood Dairy I see on the right.
Yep.
Um,
Thing is, what was next to the dairy? Was there another bakery there?
that I don't
There was
remember.
two.
You
There
got
was
the old car
there
wash
was a
there.
bakery and a grocery, or was it a grocery store?
Bob?
Yeah, there was something there, but remember that that dairy was very, very strong. That's where we
It
go.
was a popular place for a long time. Yeah, the dairy was a big dairy.
Yeah,
Yep.
for a long
Is-
time.
Is that the white structure that we're looking at here, or was it before that?
The
brick
brick
one.
face.
The brick face. Looks
brick
the
face.
same.
Oh,
Exactly
the
the
brick
same.
face.
Really.
Okay.
Yep. That was Maplewood Dairy. So, what we should do is while everything's still there, we should get better pictures and everything too while we're. And I've always remembered that being the car wash. I don't know what else it was before that, but interesting little collection of houses. And then the the little hair shop that used to be there. I think that's closed, right?
Yep.
Well, we can make our. Oh, yeah, there's the hair shop. Oh,
No, isn't this?
this is the part. Yep, to the east of it.
The apartment building and stuff like that.
Well, that's this. That's the parcel the city is talking about right here. This little one.
That house is there. No, but this is the apartment.
Yeah, the apartment's here. Yeah, behind the wine cellar. That's still there. But okay, we can move on to, I suppose, to D. Let's. Yep, there we go. Oh, now Bob Jensen. If you go just a little farther north, that kind of that rectangle there. Yep, that's where the Gladstone Hotel was. So I think Bob was interested when if they removed the parking lot to see if anything comes up. From what I can tell, when it burned down, they pretty much left the big hole there. And the big hole was still there in the 1920s when they had the little gas station on the corner. In later years, they had the AFU station on the corner. That's another thing the city might want to look into is where the tanks were moved underneath there.
They're away, yeah.
They did?
Well, no, they're aware of all the utilities, the gas that was there.
Okay.
At that corner.
So you can really kind of see how the Moose Lodge was added on, even seeing the roof differences there. I think the front part was added later. I think. It looks
Like 3.
Almost looks like there was
Yeah, maybe there was 3 stages. I don't know.
yeah,
But
three stages of it.
It would be great if we could get the history of that more. That building next to it, that's not part of it, right?
No.
That's part of the.
Horseshoe pit or something there.
Well, let's see. No, that's part of the. Yeah, this is a great view, actually.
Yeah, because this
Yeah.
lot here, next by the liquor, that's where they had the Quonset hut for the street department.
Oh, yep, that's right. Bob.
And when they moved the street department up on the hill up here, Gladstone quit moving the police.
Oh, geez.
No, no, move it so you're getting the
He wants to see the
store.
liquor store, Heritage Liquor, I think.
Go
I think
the
that's
other
where he's
way.
getting at.
Wine cellar or different?
The Heritage, the other liquor
This
store. in
okay,
town.
this parking lot here, that was the Public Works Quonset hut.
To the left of your arrow, where kind of that
Right
vacated
in
land
there.
where the curved street to the.
That is
yeah.
where Gladstone was going to build their new station once they moved
Oh, yep.
the Public Works up here. Then somehow they got it, when the city got into it, they built the station back
Okay.
farther.
Yes, Mr. Bob. Oh, Oswald Hose. Yeah, might as well see Oswald Hose. Go to English and the trail.
It's a Quonset hut.
Yep.
Right there.
That is not part of the. That might be one of the older buildings in Gladstone. Is Oswald Hose, Oswald Fire Hose. I can't ever say it. I don't know much about it. I don't know if anybody
All the
else
fire
here.
departments bought hose from them.
Do they still sell hoses?
I don't know.
I have
I've
no
been
idea.
off the fire department for over 20-some years.
So
he
this
probably
is a pretty
does
recent
sell some.
picture. August 2018. That's pretty
Although
good.
he's got to be up in his 80s, 90s.
Yeah. This isn't part of the acquisition of the city, though. The fire hose isn't part of it. So I suppose let's go over to the Gladstone house, huh? This is great. Thank you, Ginny, for doing our nice little tour here. There's Mike's LP. That's the old Benson Grocery. So zoom in on the Gladstone house. This is where it gets fun. Or don't go to Street View, though. You can still stay on the above it. So you can see the original part of the town hall is the front part there. So that's the original part. That's from the 1870s, and it was moved in 1900 to basically that parking lot, a kitty corner next to the other town hall. So they moved it across the street. Then they added on that back to it when it became the Gladstone Baptist Church, and then the catering center, and then the furniture store. And so yeah, when they demo it, I'm especially interested in that front part. The whole back doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just that front part that really matters. So they have found things hidden in the attic before in there. So it is possible there's something in there. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. Bob looked it over pretty good. He did do a nice tour of it, I know. So I'd like his input on what he saw there. But anyway, that's, yeah, a lot of history in there, too. Now, in that parking lot, okay, if you do this, okay, wait, I'm trying to think. The parking lot there, yep. In that parking lot was other businesses from the Gladstone era that burned down or were torn down. There was at least 2 of them that were there. One of them was the old Parks and Rec. They took over an old butcher store in the middle of that parking lot. And there was another saloon, I think, on the corner, too. So when they tear that parking lot up someday, there's probably stuff there. Because basically, they left the cellars as holes, and they just filled it in. So they didn't really ever dig anything up. So, and then that other house, that's an old boarding house. That's there off Clarence there. So, yeah, to the north, yep. And that's pretty much intact, the same as it was in the old 1900s. So 18.
We think they lifted it. New foundation. It's higher
Which
up
one?
than
The
boarding house.
Oh, the boarding house. They did.
To the west. We did a little bit of checking. We talked to the person that owns that now. I asked her about the interior. She said nothing really interesting.
Okay. Yes. South of Mike's LP. Oh, you're going to the Rechtenwald house, aren't you? Okay. Right there. So that house there, just south of Mike's LP, a classic old house. It's the Rechtenwald house, or go farther back, the Julius Schroer house, who was the town, New Canada town supervisor. So that's a very old house. We have the society has a picture of that from the 1890s of the family in front of it. And of course, you go to the SunGard house here. Feel like it's a great tour of Gladstone we're getting here. You know, the SunGard house is something else. That's a very nice house. That's not the first SunGard house. You have to go farther to the left, and then that's the original one. But yeah, that's the newer one from the early 1900s, and then nice house.
Yeah, beautiful.
Usually very pretty around Christmas. So if you go farther down south, and then the house of the SunGards is there. Set back. It used to be always purple. Is it still purple? It looks like it might be still purple. Yeah, it's that in the back there. Say along. Yep.
Back here.
Back there. Yep. So that was the original. That's a very old house. That's one of the older houses. So, anywho. So I don't know. I guess the bottom line is we'd love more information on all the properties if we can. What would be neat is back in the day you could pull the address file, and I don't know if they threw all that out or what, but you could let's say your house, right? You could pull the address file.
The county has all that, and I'll ask one of our engineering techs. He's often at the county checking out.
Well, it's not the county.
Property.
There was city permits or township permits. So basically, you'd say, okay, what do you have? The city clerk.
Yeah.
You be able to
I'll check with our departments.
Yeah,
and see who's got what kind of property information is available easily.
Yeah, it was really easy. It used to be just by property address. So you'd say, because I would go in and say, well, for my house, what do you have? And they have when did you update your electrical? When did you go to sewer?
I think our planning department has all that, and it's probably electronic. And
Okay.
it's probably a
Well,
matter
if it's scanned,
of
it's scanned. That's
putting
fine.
in the address, and you've got at least some history. So I'll talk to them. I'll talk to
Okay.
a couple different departments, and
I mean, for all these properties, that would save a lot of digging time because it was pretty. I remember there used to have do they still have the rotating file cabinet?
I haven't seen that. No,
No, they got computers now.
no, rotating.
It used to be,
Yeah.
one of those that would rotate. It was,
It was
back.
this way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they got rid of that. Okay. Well, then I have to say the society missed out on a boatload of information if they threw all that out.
I don't think they threw it out. It's
Oh, okay.
got to have been captured somewhere. But those,
But it definitely was not county level data. This is all city,
Yeah.
township city levels data. So the reason why I'm just saying it would save us a lot of time and just wondering, well, what happened here? Well, it took about 5 minutes back in the day to figure this kind of thing out, and otherwise we're just sitting here guessing.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's enough of me talking about this. So we still got a motion. I'm going to let it die since there's no second. So anybody want to comment more about? I mean, you knew that we'd have a lot to say about this. You know, I mean, this is like a lot going on here. So, yeah, John.
We should put something there before they tear a building down, they come and talk to us about it, inform us.
Well, we've tried to.
So,
We tried to persuade that in the past. The reason why they don't like to tell people because they don't want a crowd when they demolish a building. You know, they don't want 100 people showing
if there's no sidewalk right there,
That's why.
you know,
It's a safety thing. You know.
But I will talk to a couple people in the city and see if at least somebody can come out to observe it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's. I mean, that goes with the Moose Lodge too. You know, when it comes time to demolish that, it'd be nice to archive that too. Bob.
Somebody in this room.
Well, that would be.
Yeah, I would ask our chair first, and if he's not
Yeah.
able to make it, he could appoint
Sure,
somebody else.
absolutely. Yeah.
And
Or the society,
Probably
I would ask.
Bob Jensen would
Bob
like to be
Jensen
there.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because when we've seen buildings get torn down before, it's been very interesting. I mean, I think we're beyond burning buildings. I think that's probably done. But
They accidentally started.
well, it's not. Yeah, let's hope not. But you actually find out some interesting things when they're torn down. Sometimes when they tore down the Gladstone Fire Station, we were able to save a brick from the that had the donors had their names on the bricks. So that's the kind of
that's
stuff
what
we
we're
want.
looking for. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
anything
what we're
that's
looking for.
inscribed or
Because there
anything.
probably is a plate for the Moose Lodge, and if they might want it, but there's probably a dedication plate. I'm sure of it for the Moose Lodge. And it's been too long. Is anybody here a member of the Moose Lodge? You are, Steve? Steve? You're not a member anymore? Okay. My dad was, but he can't get me in there anymore. So if anybody knows a
You
member
could
of
dig
the
them
Moose
up
Lodge,
and carry them in.
yeah, anybody, it'd be good to have a contact there somehow.
We can see if they'd take us on a field trip there.
I would love a field
they
trip of
might,
it.
They
Absolutely.
might go for that. So
Yes.
if we don't have, we might be able to dedicate a meeting to that or something if we can get in.
I probably spent more time in there than anybody else in this room. Not as drinking age either. So as a kid, we were there a lot. So I'd love to see it again one more time, for sure. And I'm glad to hear they might be moving to a new site. That's good too. So anybody have anything else? I could go on more, but I probably should, in lieu of time, I'd keep everybody here all night. So, all right. Is this going to come back? Do we get to talk about this again, or is this it?
So, it's here before you to let us know, is there anything historic that we really need to know about?
Okay.
And so, for sure, the light rail will come back to you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And then if other things develop beyond these properties, or if you guys come up with anything else historic about these properties that we really need to know, we can take a look at it.
Okay.
And it might come up in our goals for next year. I mean, the commission may want to put some of this down on paper.
Okay.
So that's a potential.
Sure. No, I would any of these sites should be well documented. I mean, it's got to be, while we still have them there, you don't want to say, well, the worst thing is it's gone and then we want to take pictures.
Yep.
Well, you can't. It's gone. And not Google Earth pictures either. We want real
No, get
pictures.
out.
Yeah. I want interior pictures too, if possible, even if it looks horrible. I know Bob was in there. I don't know if he took any pictures.
Mr. Carlson and Bob took a lot.
He did? Okay, good.
They have a
They have
good
a
ones,
well,
better
we
than
might
we're
have
gonna
to have
get
a
today.
presentation by the Historical Society because I guess I don't know the details. So we'll find out. We'll ask. We'll ask. Well, thank you, Jenny, for bringing us to our attention. It's good to know this kind of stuff now and not here's what used to be there.
Yeah.
It's good to know. So I guess moving on to E2, North End Study Discussion. Let's go to that part of the packet here.
I saw one thing in here, and I didn't realize the city is catering to one ethnic group.
Well, let's have the, maybe we should have the background first before we comment on
Okay.
E2.
Exercise 1, it's in that part.
All right, well, let's get the review first, and then we'll discuss the...
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. So, Mr. Martin also prepared a memo on some background on the North End study. Excuse me. For us, like, once again, this is just to bring this to your information so everyone's got some information on it. I think Mr. Gaspar and Mr. Curry heard a little bit about this when you came to the business breakfast, where they talked about the North End study. So the city's 2040 comprehensive plan calls for more detailed visioning and planning for the North End. Why? There's been so much change in retail. A lot of the malls just aren't making it anymore. They really need to change up the kinds of activities that are going on at a mall. Healthcare is changing, and there's a lot of healthcare facilities in this particular area of Maplewood. They're doing the Rush Line BRT, Bus Rapid Transit planning, which will have an impact on the area. And housing's a big issue in the metropolitan area, and there's potential for additional housing in this area. So the area they're studying is from 694 down to just south of Beam, from just east of White Bear Avenue to west of Hazelwood, all the way to the Vento Trail. And in this photo, you see where the mall is and where St. John's Hospital is. So what the project hopes to accomplish is to define anticipated mixes of use for land on a block-by-block basis. So what's the best type of use each area could handle. Urban design principles to guide redevelopment in the area. They want to talk about opportunities for connections and synergy with Health East, St. John's, and other nearby healthcare facilities, and improvements to support pedestrian, bicycling, transit, and connectivity, and then identify the tools and the steps they need to take to really support redevelopment and revitalization and get it going. The project schedule is they began this summer. The consultants on this are Perkins and Will, and they began with some market analysis and existing conditions analysis. They had one community meeting in there. That was an open house on August 21st where 80 people attended. And in your packet, Mr. Martin has provided some of the notes from that meeting. And then in fall, they began the actual working on the plan for plan alternatives, for refining things. They'll be working on design guidelines and developing a final plan. Sometime this winter, they're anticipating a second community meeting. And then beginning spring and into the future, they would actually start implementation, some of the tools and strategies. There's a North End working group with businesses and residents from the neighborhood. And I wanted to show you the website on this. There's quite a bit of material about the project on their website. Oh. So you can see here our city website under the community development area and planning, or you can just call up North End Vision Plan. You know, actually, a fun thing I want to show you first is out on the city website on the main page. If you go to in the header, Business and Development, you can find a lot of the projects that are going on in the city. Okay.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
So that's kind of nice, quick place to find things. But here under Community Development, we've got the North End Vision, and they had a lot of really wonderful resources, including the materials that were presented at the open house. And so that has, for those of you that are interested, has a lot more information potentially than you had in your packet. A little bit of the socioeconomics they go through. Some of the market findings are in there. Retail market, what's going on. So I think it's really a lot of interesting information.
Okay. All right. Any comments? No?
Oh, you want?
So,
Well, exercise 1, if you look on your page, on your packet, opportunity is strengthened and sense of place of diversity for the Hmong community.
Okay.
Why is it just the Hmong community? Why is it Maplewood residents, period?
So these are just notes that were contributed by individual people. So this is not what you're referring to is notes that came out, somebody made that comment during the meeting. So we were just collecting people's ideas, and this was not a city policy or a city vision. These were just ideas that individuals presented at that meeting.
So our question that we have here, is there important resources in the area people should be aware of? Good question. That's a good question. I mean, in a weird way, Sears is almost. I mean, I wish this is another place where we should. I wish we could document at Sears when it was still open. I would have loved pictures of the interior of Sears. Now you can't. So why?
There.
Well, it's still there, but it's not there. The signs have been removed. We got to be quicker on our feet to document these things. I understand the redevelopment of it, but the Sears was really one of the main reasons why the mall made it there, and now it's gone. It'll be something else, but
Last week that they were there, they got from where the appliances were, there's a stairwell that goes down. They had a room down there that they had all these computers. They didn't even know they had back
oh wow.
there.
See, I wish we had pictures of all that stuff. Would have been good. And I dropped the ball. I should have got over there sooner. These things are closing quicker than we can really jump on. And we've always wanted what we really need is a better flushed out history of the mall. And it's always been a tricky business. We always hear of a photo archive at the mall, people to talk to, and we try. And Steve Carlson, correct me, I don't know if we've ever been able to get a lot. Yeah, it's always been on the wish list, but it's always been a tricky thing to do. So that's before we lose the mall as a mall, and I don't think we're losing it anytime soon. I think it's still a viable place. It's just that we should document it what we can. Where the carousel is, that used to be the old food court that was down below there.
Oh, yeah. All that stuff is still down there.
Now, that's a good point. I would love pictures of the mall when it opened in the 70s, when it was still orange and red with the food court in the middle. We have one picture, and it's from a book, and it's not a great picture. But I'm sure people have pictures of the mall, the inside of the mall. So I guess a plea could go out, maybe something to put in the Maplewood newsletter. There's got to be people with pictures of the interior of the mall. And I got some from the 80s, when they first did the first really big remodel of the mall. So, I mean, everything else after the mall has been built. I mean, really, they've cleared away any historical structures. What's the name of the farm that was there on the north end? Hayjack Farm. I mean, it's Hijack. So I suppose, really, the most historical thing left is the bridge where the old railroad bridge is. That is marked and has a sign by it right up in the corner, top left corner.
County Road D's.
Yeah, where County Road D curves down, it used to go underneath that bridge. That's a scary. There's some horrific car crashes under that bridge.
Well, one of the firemen got hit down there.
Yeah, so I mean that was one of the most dangerous early intersections before they redid it. But the bridge is still there, and I suppose when the rush line goes in, I'm gonna guess the bridge isn't gonna stay there. Am I correct?
I think they fill it in. I thought they filled that in.
No, the bridge is there. It's still there.
They just
they
dirt
filled
on both sides
They
of
put
it.
dirt on both sides. You can't drive underneath, but the bridge is there. So that's a question to pose to the rail: is what's the future of the bridge? I guess. I don't know. That's probably not talked about in the.
It almost sounds like they're taking that bus line and running it out to 61 and then up. I'm not going to.
Oh, that's right. It is going to jog around. So I guess I don't know the exact. Leon, did you know the path?
No, there was separate groups that were meeting on the north end
Okay.
rush line than the 3 stations in Maplewood.
Does anybody have any thoughts on historical? I'm looking around. I don't know.
Well, the high-check property up there, they are saving some of the trees, but
Yeah, that's right.
they're not best looking right now. And Conifer Ridge area.
I'll tell you what, I really agree with their unsafe for pedestrians between the bus and McDonald's. That's a bad. There's people running across that thing all the time. The other one, I agree with the beam being difficult. I see people running across that too all the time. I know it's not part of the history, but
Well, you find that even if you're at a light, you cannot cross from one side to the other
it's a long walk.
without it changing to don't walk.
So, trying to think. Well, there perhaps might be something with Markham Pond down there, the old gravel pit. That might be worth taking a look. I see it's redevelopment there. Is that already in play, or what's the status on that down there? Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to.
Right on Beam there, or further
it's
south?
Yeah, between Beam by the park, kind of.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's right by the Hazelwood Park there, but I guess I'm not sure. Is that where the library was? No. Where's the library on here?
There next to Alzheimer's Center.
Oh, okay, I see it. Gotcha. There it is. Okay.
And they talk about the parks up there. They had a real nice park, but the vandals got in there and destroyed the
Oh yes, the
sculpture
library
garden up there.
Is there what? Do you know what's going in where the Rainbow Foods is? Has that been?
On White Bear?
Yeah.
On White Bear? No.
Okay. There's another thing we should have documented before it's gone too.
So, and that's a great idea. I mean, maybe that's going to be on our goals for next year to
Yes.
identify what do you want pictures of, what's
Yes.
potential development that you want to get inside to take pictures of.
We
and
definitely
can-
need to document these things. They're going so fast that back in the day, Ann Fosberg, I call her up and say, Ann, we need pictures, and she'd be out there taking pictures. And Ann maybe took pictures of some of this stuff, but like Rainbow Foods, who would have thought of taking a picture of that? Now it's gone. So they happen quick sometimes, these things. So, but that's a good goal. Maybe that's what we should do is do a something better with.
January we'll do our goals,
Okay.
and so I'm jotting some of these ideas down for us.
More pictures? It's so easy to take pictures now. It's not like it used to be, I can only take 21 pictures. We could take 2,000 pictures, Yeah. So, does anybody have any other comments? I don't know. I'd have to
The only thing I've heard lately on the internet, Sears might be on the way back.
Oh, in that same place?
Some guy is supposedly
Oh, bought the rest of it. Yeah.
the one that put him in bankruptcy is buying him back.
Okay.
So it may come back.
Well, that would be interesting. They'll have to call it the Phoenix then, huh? Okay. Bad joke. All right. All right, I guess that's it on that, maybe. Although I'd like to hear more about the rush line and the bridge. I guess that'd be my one question, is what's the plan?
So when that's further along and they have more definitive information. I could certainly ask about the bridge if they know anything about it right now, but
Yeah.
those plans are really preliminary still.
Well, it's better to know in advance so we can figure this out.
Pete,
Yes, Bob?
on that rush line, if you go on the north side of 694, 'cause
Yes.
you go around Grandma's Bakery there.
Yes, yes.
There's still rail cars on.
Oh, yeah.
on that rail.
Yes.
So apparently they're not too excited about putting that through. I don't know what.
I know it's always been an interesting
Two
substation in there too.
Well,
Yep.
there's been a big fight up in White Bear.
Oh yeah, that's with the parking. Where
Well, the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can only deal with Maplewood on what we can. Well, I mean, this is a lot to take in, this North End thing here. There is a lot here.
Okay.
So. Okay.
I'm finished.
Let's see. I love the comments. They're great. We need a hotel. I've heard that one before. Not enough restaurants. That's a good one too. It's a busy place over there. That's for sure. The restaurants I think are doing pretty good. I mean, I always see them. It looks crowded all the
On
time.
high-end restaurants,
High-end restaurants.
from what I read in here.
So okay.
So speaking of which, so there is a survey monkey you've got a link in your packet.
Oh.
So if you have ideas as
Yeah.
individuals they don't have to be related to history, you can go out and,
Okay.
as Maplewood residents, put
All
your
right.
thoughts in on that survey.
Survey monkey. I like it. All right. Suppose move on, right? F1. Maplewood Heritage Award nominations. All right. Switching gears here a little bit. We got some nominations already. I know that.
Oh.
Well, we should. I plan on redoing the ones I
Okay.
nominated last time. So.
So thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Our Maplewood Heritage Award recognizes an individual who has significantly contributed to preservation of Maplewood history or historic sites
You
through
got
research.
your mic on again?
Should I start over?
There we go.
There you go.
The Heritage Award, recognizes an individual who has significantly contributed to the preservation of Maplewood history or historic sites through research, preservation, or education and outreach. And so our schedule for the Heritage Award is in December and January is our call for nominations. We've sent our information to the Maplewood Living and to Maplewood Area Historical Society to appear in their upcoming newsletters. Nominations are due January 31st. At the February HPC meeting then, we'll make a recommendation, and then hopefully the last meeting in March, then we would actually do that presentation. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to actually have that plaque made. So tonight we're here to do nominations. Before we do, we want to look at past recipients of the award. We're George Rossbach, Shar Wazalak, Ann Fosberg, Bob Jensen, Carolyn Peterson, the Bruntrop family, Joe Fox, Al Galbraith, Lois Beam, and Stephen Carlson. And so the commission also asked to know who our past nominees have been, since we have so many good people in that pool. And in the past several years, these people's names have come up for nomination. Lucille Aurelius, Ron Cockrell, Brenda Rudberg, Bruce Mogren, Leo Capiter, Lorraine Fisher, Don Cortez, William Seal Little, Arlene Morgan, Wally Wakefield, and Paul Yoakum. So tonight we're asking the commission to make nominations, at least one nomination, and then for someone to volunteer to write up that application onto the nomination form so we have a good description of that person or person's contributions. So with that, I'll turn it back to the commission.
All right. Mr. Cardinal.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a nomination
Okay.
as retired Judge Gary Bastian.
Ah,
Add him to the list.
that's a good one. Really good one. Are you going to do a little write-up?
Yep.
Good. I'd like to nominate Ron again and Brenda Rudberg. I think we still have write-ups.
We still have write-ups, so if you're willing to do those, I'll send those to you and you can
Okay.
renew them. Or
Yep.
you don't have to change them, or, okay. I would, as we learned in the past, please contact the person, tell them you're nominating them, make
Okay.
sure they're okay with the nomination.
Well, I'm looking at you, Steve.
We've lost about 4 of them on our list.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. Any other nominations? Could be one from before too. There's a lot of great names. Which Paul Yoakum though? We should be more clear. What number?
That was your.
Yeah, if Paul, we should have the number. Which Paul Yoakum? Yeah, and we'd have to. Anyway.
There's a lot of good names. That's the
That's
the
hard.
trouble we had in the one year. We tried to get them. There's a couple of them on the wish list that have already passed.
Yeah.
We'd have to give them posterior or whatever they call it.
Anybody else? I mean, you could always.
You can always send it in.
Yeah.
Anybody can send one in later by the January 31st deadline.
Okay.
So what I have on my list now is Mr. Cardinal will do a nomination for Gary Bastian, write that form, and Mr. Boulay will do it for Ron Cockriel and Brenda Rudberg.
Okay. All right. Well, we got some nominees. We'll see. We're voting in January.
So
wait, I can't remember
everything
when we
is
vote.
due in January
Okay.
31st, so that'll be ready for us for the February
Vote in
HPC
February.
meeting to vote.
Okay.
Okay, next visitor presentation.
Oh, Mr. Cardinal.
I think Jenny kind of highlighted that. We should mention it. This is open to the public,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
so anyone can make a nomination.
Yes, absolutely. If you make a nomination, give us background. We need that background.
Yes, please. Nominations are due January 31st,
Okay.
and there's a form on the city's website under the History Commission's webpage.
Okay. Do you have something too? I heard somebody over here. No.
Visitor presentation.
Oh. You want to move on is what you want to do, huh? Visitor presentations. We do have the Maplewood Area Historical Society, Mr. Steve Carlson.
Well, thank you for having me here. My name is Stephen Carlson. I was on the original Historic Commission for the City of Maplewood. I served with Pete there. I'm one of the founding members of the Maplewood Historical Society and past treasurer and secretary. And I'd like to fill you in on some of the things that have been going on in the Historical Society, and there's a couple comments I'd like to make on some of the things that you've talked about here. I think one of our most important things here is that we had a vacancy in our treasurer's post, and Mr. Leon Axman has agreed to serve on our board, and that's a very important position, and we welcome you. We thank you for helping us out on that. Another thing, after our executive director, Nicole D. Guzman, left, we found that our society has grown so much. It was really a heavy load for Bob Jensen to manage all by himself. We took on an office administrator. So we've hired a new person, Ms. Joy Donnelly. She lives over in Western Maplewood, and she's a younger person, and she's got a lot of youthful energy, and she's heavily involved in theater. Oh. And she's already took up the project of writing for a grant to help put on a play called The Sisters of Swing at the Society's Bruntrup Farm at the barn this coming July. And we just found out on Tuesday that she was awarded, the Society's been awarded a grant to cover that. So that's a great thing. We also have coming up on January 12th our holiday tea that the older women put on. Well, all the women, I shouldn't say older women. Women put on.
Careful, Steve.
Yeah, I got to be careful. Politically correct. The thing's going to be old family recipes. It was kind of interesting why that came about. This is the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. I don't know if you know that previously to World War I, and they were drafting soldiers, and they found out that a lot of them were in such poor physical condition. There was a movement by the government for putting out booklets on health and how to properly cook meals and whatnot. So that's kind of really what started the recipe craze, starting the cookbooks. It's interesting, we have a nice collection of books from World War I, and then from the 20s, we get a lot of cookbooks from people who bought appliances or insurance policies. They would give you cookbooks. And then you get into the 1950s, and you got green, purple Jello books. So you get a whole history of cooking and how it kind of evolved. So that's going to be interesting. So we have a good program plan for that. I can mention some of the other things that you
That's better.
Let's just mention on the screen, we've got the date for the tea is January 12th, tickets. So contact the society for tickets.
Yep, you can call phone number there, and they're still taking reservations, so it is filling up like I do mention, some of you talk about the Gladstone development. I know you talk about this partial aid. I remember as a kid, that always was a very odd location. I seem to remember there was also a small shack house on that lot.
Okay.
I do know the society has an old address book from the 1930s called People Living in That Area. So I can look at it.
Yeah.
Great.
As for the Gladstone House, I was with Bob Jensen, and we did go into it about 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
The floors were, due to leaky roof, the floors were rotted. It was very dangerous. We had someone go in there with us. But we did remove some.
Nothing. There we go.
New battery.
There we go. Shake the battery.
There. Well, we did go into the building and remove some of the ceiling tile, and sure and behold, there was one of the eaves of the old town hall stuck up in there and had the original paint and whatnot. So I do believe there is a possibility of certain things being buried in the walls there. So I think it is worthwhile to have someone on site when that is torn down. And I'd also like to mention, it's not only the history of the town hall. I think we need to be mindful that that was the business of Donna Funk, who ran the Gladstone House. And before, when she died, Ann Fosberg managed to get Donna Funk's, she had a booklet full of photos of her business dealings there. So we have a lot of great photographs of the inside of the business in operation. And she really put on a really nice spread, some really great color photographs. I'd also like to mention about the Moose Lodge, that D partial. I know I cataloged, Maplewood had a city permit book. It was a handwritten ledger with all the filing fees and whatnot. So I know we do have that in our collection. And I also know that several months ago there was somebody from the Minnesota Department of Transportation, due to that rush line corridor, were asking for information or old photos on that general area, because the tracks do kind of cross nearby the Moose Lodge. It was interesting, I pointed out to Bob Jensen, a lot of the old photographs that I looked at, you'll see no trees in that area, but you also see practically no vegetation. And what I pointed out was it was very common for the railroad in the old days to spread oil down to keep no vegetation from growing in that area. So you could see, because there was cross lines of the railroad tracks. So the area might be very heavily polluted, so there was a lot of concern on that. So I don't know what the results were of their bore testings.
Okay.
Rich Curry talked about the historic district. I know we have records from the meetings back in 2005, and a lot of people were talking about, the redevelopment of the Gladstone area. And I think the general feeling was, yeah, there were a lot that was destroyed, but there was concern or a consensus that any new development would have the look and feel that would complement what's left of the older parts. And that was kind of the general theme of those people. And I do know that Ann Fosberg, she went out on her own and took photographs of every single business in Maplewood.
Okay, wow.
And unfortunately, I've gone through that book not too long ago, and you'd be surprised a number of those businesses no longer exist.
Yeah.
So there is a high turnover. So somebody needs to go through there again and rephotograph a lot of these new businesses that have come in, because they may not be here 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Question,
So-
does the society have that in a book form or just individual photographs?
They're in photographs. I don't know if we digitized them yet or not, but we do have them. She had, it was just photos after photos. There's hundreds of them.
Okay, well, that's something to consider, yeah. I mean, if we could,
But it was a great project that Ann took on by herself.
Okay.
Otherwise, there would be no record.
yeah, well, but can't wait to hear more. I know she did it, but I didn't know how extensive she did it, so that's good to know. Yeah.
Any other questions? It's funny you mentioned Bob Jensen. Well, usually Bob calls me late at night for information. So usually I'm the one that gives him the information to
Okay.
pass on to you.
Well, he's watching, right? Hi, Bob.
Yeah, we're supposed to give him a real bad time today,
Yeah,
so he
well.
can come over.
I'm sure he's sitting right now writing down little notes saying, got to talk about this.
And I also like-
expect an email from Bob.
And I'd like to also mention that we're upgrading our website, so if there's anyone out there that wants to join the Historical Society or become involved, just check out our website, and
Okay.
we're happy to have more members or
Good.
volunteers still.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for coming too. And I gave Steve some paperwork about Wakefield Lake that he can pass along to the society too. So, okay, moving on then to there's no H1, so I1 new operations director at MAHS.
And that's Joy. And
Oh, okay.
So Steve mentioned that, so thank you for that. We're excited to have her working for the society. It'll be fun to see what she'll bring something very different to it, so it'll be very interesting to see what direction it goes. So.
And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of old history people that are no longer with us would be thrilled to learn a theater's coming to the Bruin Shrub Farm. George Rossback, Don Wiegert, all those guys were huge into theater. Even Bob, I think you dabbled a bit, right? So that's great that they're going to do some theater there. That's a good use. That's pretty. I can't wait to hear more about it. Glad they got the grant. That's wonderful. Okay, I-2, our last item.
So
Poor Farm Cemetery
yeah.
designation.
So Chair Boulay and I went and met with the county. We met with Mark McCabe and
Yep.
Scott Yonke,
Yep.
who are with the Parks and Recreation Department, and we went through the local designation nomination with them. And so they were receptive. They were very interested. Mr. McCabe, he is a brand new park director, so we were really presenting the background information to him and going through a lot of information with him. And so they're going to take that, talk a little bit more with their park staff, and if staff, I felt we had a good reception from them, that they'll probably then take it to their Parks and Recreation Commission. And if the commission is supportive, they would take it to the county board, the Board of Commissioners. And so we'll see where that goes. One of their key concerns was, does this prevent them from doing anything? They're going to be starting, they hope to start creating a campus master plan for the county campus down there. And so, they were really curious about, is that going to prevent them from doing certain things? And they realize they don't want to dig up a cemetery. So they understood that that's probably not an issue. They were also very curious about, does this put any extra maintenance mandates on them? And I told them, no, we do not have the authority to tell them what to do or to require that they go above and beyond. We only have authority, if they were to be designated, to review alterations that they were going to make. But it wouldn't be up to us to say whether they can do their prescribed burn or remove a tree or things like that. So we'll see. I'll be in touch with them and see if they'll get that on their probably the February Park Commission schedule for them.
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean,
Yeah.
the more, it seems like since they're new, a lot of this was brand new information to them. So the old study that was done will really be handy for them. I think they're very pleased to hear there's already a study done.
And it's a management plan for
Yeah.
the site, so that was
management plan's
really good.
already there. So a lot of the work's already been done. It's just good to get everybody back up to speed and refresh the site. Might be good because it was getting pretty rough over there. They did move a lot of the trees on the Gateway Trail this past summer. They cleared it out. If you look
Okay.
at it, you can see that a lot of the brush, the buckthorn was
buckthorn,
removed.
okay.
It was quite the buckthorn.
Yeah.
And I think there's some on the cemetery site too. So our message to them is no, you do what you need to do to keep
to maintain it.
To maintain it. So we said advised against digging too much. I would not dig around. So.
One question.
Question.
Savannah, did that ever go to the council for certification on the historic preservation?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's done, right?
I thought it was done, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
when it was
Savannah's.
done.
This is kind of coming like a similar.
Yep. So
thing.
we've got our two sites, the Broontrop Farm and Savannah. This would be our third site for local
So what are
designation
we
if
going to
it
do
goes
next
through.
year now?
Well, let's get this done first. And
Well,
then
no,
Well,
we
we'll
got to go on.
No, so in January we'll do our goals, and
Yeah.
then we will, and you know, we want to do it. We want to do one a year, and
Yeah.
so we'll start a new one.
Well, we'll
I
have
think
to-
we can. You know, even though we're waiting on this one, we're not going to wait till it finishes. We should start a new one. Figure out in January, February what we want to work on.
Well, we've had a list already, right? Does anybody have anything top of their head they want to start thinking about? I mean, Forest Lawn Mausoleums come up before. The Waterworks.
Waterworks,
We can
Priory
bring that
building,
list.
right?
We can bring that list back.
Fish
and
Creek.
Yeah, Fish Creek, I suppose. We'd have to think about exactly what part.
The whole thing.
The whole thing? Okay.
We can
Well,
bring that list back
yeah,
and talk
we can
about
bring
it
the list
in the
back.
new year.
There is a list. So,
And then any other house. There was some that came up to me that wanted their house on, but they were told they did too much remodeling or did something else, and they didn't want to do it.
yeah, they're pretty strict about houses. What's been done to them already is a
Well, as long
factor.
as the outside structure is somewhat.
Yeah.
It was the old Edgerton School. I got a question.
That's been heavily altered.
I got a
absolutely.
question. What year did Edgerton Elementary School win the baseball championship for Ramsey County?
Okay. Well, I don't know at top of my head. What year was it? Oh, you better have the answer now. If you're gonna throw that out there, you gotta have the answer.
I know it's 1946,
Were you on it?
I think, or 7.
Well, you'd be pretty old if you're on that one.
No, one of our firefighter that we just lost, a chief from Parkside, was
Okay,
on it.
he was
with
on
his
it.
brother, and they had it on Facebook.
Okay. Well, there's always a little tidbit of history somewhere, right?
Right.
So, well, that's all we have, folks. Hate to end early.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
February 10th is the next meeting? January 10th. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, what? January 10, next meeting, 2019. Sounds futuristic, right?
Okay. We adjourned.
Right? Am I right?